Well, hello there, and welcome back to Viper Bites Thursday Night Football Preview Show, where we are going to be looking at the 6-1 Green Bay Packers heading to the desert to face off against the 7-0 Arizona Cardinals. Now, when we look at this, we didn't expect either the Cardinals to be 7-0 at this point in the season, and really after the Packers lost early on the season, we didn't expect them to be 6-1, but here we are. And we also kind of expected a few more players to be involved in this game, but more on that here in a second. First off, let's get into some housekeeping here. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube right now on the Vipers Network, you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you smash that like button. And hey, if you got questions, my Twitter handle right there, @MattDonnellyFF. You got questions, I got answers. Send them to me. I'll get them answered as well as I can. Also, get into the comments here on the YouTube because I will get to those as well. Now, if you're listening to this strictly on podcast form, whether it's Apple or Spotify, make sure you take a couple seconds there. Hit that rate and review. Maybe drop some 5 stars on there. That'd be great. I appreciate that. And make sure you leave those comments because I will read those and I will get back to you. And I look to improve each and every week, much like our fantasy rosters hope to do the same thing. Now, going into this game, we know that Devante Adams and Allen Lazard look like they're going to be missing this game. It's a short week, short turnaround. They go from playing the game on Sunday to Thursday Night Football. In this COVID-type world right now, it's hard to get enough negative tests to be able to get back in the lineup by the Thursday nighter. I don't see any way that either one of these players is able to do that. This team has been hit hard by COVID right now. A lot of it can be traced back to the defensive coordinator, Barry, and what that's done to this whole team right now. So that's going to make things a little bit difficult for the Packers heading this matchup. But you know what? I don't bet against Aaron Rodgers in any way, shape, or form, even when he comes into the game as the 17th leading passer with 1,710 yards. That 1,710 yards trails guys like Jared Goff, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, and really has Packers fans and fantasy managers wondering if they should be relaxed right now because they're starting to feel it. They're feeling that little bit of pressure here, especially if you had Aaron Rodgers as your QB1 going to the season and you're getting him as the QB17 as far as scoring or for passing is concerned. You're kind of feeling the pressure a little bit. You expect a little bit more from Aaron Rodgers, but the good news is he has thrown 15 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. Because of that, he comes in the top 10 for fantasy signal caller so far. He's got 141.4 fantasy points on the season. That's good. That's good to get enough to get you in the top 10 to get you QB1 status, but it's kind of a disappointing QB1, isn't it? You're expecting more out of him, but when you see that 15-3, you're like, okay, that's good. But that 17th in the league in passing behind Jared Goff, that doesn't feel good, especially if you're a Packers enthusiast. Now, bad news, you lose Adams, you're losing Lazard. Worst news, Arizona surrenders the 4th fewest fantasy points to opposing signal callers, giving up 15.7 fantasy points per game. And they're getting Chandler Jones back this week. He's coming off his own COVID protocol for the Cardinals. So he's going to be in that lineup, adding a little extra pressure there for Rodgers to get that ball out a little bit quicker than maybe he would like this week. Now, we talked about how it doesn't get any better for Rodgers because of Lazard and Adams. Well, he's going to have to rely on Randall Cobb, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who will make the assumption on Wednesday is going to be in the lineup. Now he's trending in the right direction. He should be in there for Thursday, but for all intents and purposes, we will proceed with this video as if that MVS is going to be in the lineup. You've got Malik Taylor going to be there, Equina St. Brown, Amari Rodgers, Robert Tanyan. Not exactly a big vote of confidence as far as pass catches of the perimeter and in the slot are concerned. Now, it wouldn't be a big surprise to me if this is a Amari Rodgers breakout game for the simple fact that we're telling Aaron Rodgers, you've got no weapons. This is not a good situation for you to be in. Is there anything more petty than perhaps force feeding the ball to another Rodgers, in referring to Amari Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers to Amari Rodgers? I could see this being one of those statement games that Aaron is really looking to make. And you know what? The Packers aren't necessarily in a bad position here. If you look at their last 6 times in which Devante Adams hasn't played, they are 6-0. And in those games, Aaron Rodgers is averaging 318 passing yards per game. He's got a passer rating of 125.2. His touchdown to interception ratio is 17-1. You don't want to be without a guy like Devante Adams, but they've proven that they can win without him in their lineup. And that's in large part to not only Aaron Rodgers, but to Aaron Jones. Now, we look at this, and with Adams out of the lineup, a lot of that success has come because of Aaron Jones and what he's done. He's stepped up. Now, without Adams, Jones will see an uptick like he always has in the passing game. He's getting 1.7 more receptions per game, 37.8 more yards per game, 2.4 more targets per game. He's even running the ball more in each game that Adams misses. And more importantly, he's getting 12.6 more fantasy points per game. That's right. He's averaging nearly 13 more fantasy points with Adams out of the lineup than when Adams is in the lineup. Now, Jones is 13th in the league in rushing yards. He's 12th if you remove Lamar Jackson and what he's done at the quarterback position. He has 404 rushing yards. He is 10th in receiving yards amongst running backs with 187 through 7 games. His 6 touchdowns total, 2 on the ground, 4 receiving, have him tied for 6th in the entire league, which has propelled him to RB7 status thus far with 93 fantasy points on the season, averaging 13.3 per game. Is it possible that we can get A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones on the field at the same time? Get A.J. Dillon behind Aaron Rodgers, maybe split Aaron Jones out wide a little bit. Green Bay is going to need each and every one of their weapons in this game to make a difference on that scoreboard, in my opinion. But I'm, again, not going to bet against Aaron Rodgers. Now, Dillon has 52 attempts this season, but is averaging 4.4 yards per carry. He's also added 231 yards on the ground in 7 games. Dillon has yet to score on the ground, but did manage to turn one of his 10 receptions into a touchdown earlier back in week 5 against the Bengals. Look for both backs to play a factor in this one, as the Cardinals are giving up 127.2 yards from scrimmage to running backs. And out of necessity, I think these Packers backs are going to need to be involved early and often in this game, maybe to drain the clock a little bit and work the clock a little bit to keep the ball away from the Cardinals and kind of grind on them throughout the game. Now, we talked about what is missing from the Packers in the passing game. Let's talk about what they're working with. Randall Cobb, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, if healthy, will need to step up. Now, Cobb, I'm expecting to draw the interest of Byron Murphy there, playing predominantly out of the slot. Last week, Cobb played 62% of the snaps. You can expect that number to increase drastically this week. Now, if he's getting Murphy, that means Valdes-Scantling is probably going to draw Robert Alford on the perimeter there. And that's an assignment that I think favors Alford. It's going to be a tough one for Scantling, especially coming back on a short week with a soft tissue injury, that a hamstring just starting to get right. It's going to be tough for him to be there. So for me, Valdes-Scantling is going to be a non-factor in this game, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Valdes-Scantling can get loose at some point for a big play here and there. And if anyone could drop it into a place where only MVS can catch it, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. Now, when we talk about it, it's kind of more of a low percentage play, but it's still a higher percentage play than Equinus St. Brown making a factor. St. Brown's already burnt me once coming out of college. I thought the world of him coming out of Notre Dame. That has never materialized. Probably another reason why Amon-Ra doesn't get a fair shake for me. Now, Malik Taylor, he's also looks like he could be returning to the lineup after an extended absence. So look for him and MVS to be on the perimeter, Cobb to be the guy in the slot. They'll be rotating guys around. Cobb will play probably a little bit on the outside as well when MVS has to come out for a breather, because I don't expect MVS to be getting a whole lot of run there, but he's still going to have some. Now, I did mention Amari Rodgers, but we'll come back to that a little bit later because you know how I feel there. But Robert Tanyan is kind of the guy for me that is going to be the difference breaker for the Packers. Now, it's true. He has not been good this season. I mean, he literally has 2 games this year where he's had more than 10 receiving yards. One was last week where he had 5 targets, 63 yards, and managed to find a touchdown on National Tight End Day. The other was back in week 2 against the Detroit Lions. Again, he scored a touchdown that week. Now, the Cardinals have been good against the tight ends. They're allowing 5.5 fantasy points per game, thanks to the lockdown abilities of both Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker. Those guys can simply shut it down. But look at it. It's simple math. Well, kind of simple. I'm not really a math guy, so take this as you will. But Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones, they're going to do what they do. I think they're going to be in good shape. That said, the next tier of weapons in this offense for the Packers needs to step up. There's very little to be desired of this group, whether it's MVS, ECB, Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers, Robert Tanyan. Someone needs to step up, especially in PPR. I think there's an opportunity for Robert Tanyan to make a difference in here. Now, I'm not going to rely on him as my tight end plug and play every week, but this is an opportunity that maybe, you know what, if I'm desperate, I need a tight end this week because Mark Andrews or Darren Waller, they're on bye and there's nothing else available. Robert Tanyan's a guy I think I could get in there and I might be able to steal some points. Now for Arizona, Deandre Hopkins, he's on the watch list for the injury report right now. He's had a couple of DNPs, maybe a little bit of veteran rest. He is dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury there. J.J. Watt, DNP Monday, Tuesday. He's got that shoulder. And both Jordan Hicks and Isaiah Simmons at the linebacker position, they were both limited Monday, Tuesday. Expect them both to be ready to go. Why are the Cardinals having the success that they are? It's because they are getting an MVP caliber season out of Kyler Murray. And how is he doing this? He is spreading the ball around to all his receivers. Let's look at how the receptions have been distributed early this season. DeAndre Hopkins leads the way for the Cardinals with 33 receptions, followed by Christian Kirk's 30. Chase Edmunds has 27. Rondale Moore has 26. AJ Green has 24. Now add in Zach Ertz, who had 3 receptions on 5 targets in his Cardinals debut. The ability for Murray to spread the ball around has allowed him to become a more well-rounded quarterback. He's not just force-feeding the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. He can do that. He knows that whenever he needs a play to be made, he could toss that ball up to DeAndre Hopkins, whether he's triple covered or not, and Hopkins is going to make a play on that ball. But he hasn't had to do that because the other good receivers around him are stepping up. Now, Murray sits third in fantasy points at the quarterback position, 173.7, only 6 points back of Tom Brady, who sits atop the leaderboard in that category. As well, he's fifth in passing yards with 2,002. Now, that's a huge step up for Kyler Murray this season. He's playing out of his mind. He's doing well. Cardinals are 7-0. What more can you say? Let's just hope that doesn't tail off like it's done in the past couple seasons. Now, the best way to keep that passing game going is by keeping that running game going. And James Conner has been surpassing my expectations so far this season. And the Cardinals haven't been afraid to use him in the red zone, as is evident by his 18 red zone touches through 7 games. And he sits RB21 with 78 PPR fantasy points. Now, Conner is tied with his counterpart in this week's Thursday night showdown with 6 touchdowns. He's also averaging 3.8 yards per carry this year and has added up to 336 yards on the ground. Now, I'm pretty confident, but I could be wrong, but James Conner has secured that role in the desert as the between the 20s running back. Pardon my language here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. What that all means is Chase Edmonds and James Conner have very distinct roles, and both of them are going to have that role from this point on and going forward the rest of the season. Now, Chase Edmonds sits just ahead of James Conner PPR scoring amongst running backs. He is currently the RB19 with 81.9 points in 7 games. Now, if we were to look at standard scoring, you literally could flip these 2 running backs around where James Conner would have a slight edge on Chase Edmonds. One is getting the touchdowns, one is getting the receptions. That literally is the difference between the 2 right now. Edmonds sits 11th amongst backs in receiving yards with 172 on 26 receptions, placing him just a mere 14 yards out of the top 10 in that category at the running back spot. The biggest concern for fantasy managers, I just mentioned it there, is although he's in the top 20 when it comes to PPR, he's not getting the touchdowns. Those are going to James Conner. Those red zone looks are going to James Conner. Edmonds has yet to find their back of the end zone on any of his 95 touches heading into week number 8. Now, talking about the top dog when it comes to the receiving game, that's DeAndre Hopkins. His status, much like the pass catchers on the Green Bay Packers, is up in the air after logging DNP on both Monday and Tuesday. And with Thursday being on the short week, it's something to be monitoring as we get closer and closer to kickoff. Fun fact, Hopkins has yet to produce a 90-yard receiving game this season, and we've already played 7 weeks. He has at least 7 targets in 4 of 7 games, but has yet to see double-digit targets in any of them. His 420 receiving yards ranks him 27th in the league right now. However, his 7 touchdowns ranks him 2nd in the league right now, with 4 of those touchdowns coming in the last 3 games, which places him as the wide receiver 12, right inside that wide receiver 1 status in PPR scoring with 117 points and averaging 16.7 fantasy points per game. Just a little bit of a heads up on how Murray's doing what he's doing. He's got a 400-yard receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. He's got a 400-yard receiver in AJ Green. He's got a 400-yard receiver in Christian Kirk. That's some good ball placement. That's moving the ball around. That's spreading it around, making it difficult for teams to defend. Now, AJ Green is 33rd in the league in receiving. We mentioned that 400 yards. He's got 406 yards to date with 3 touchdowns. He's got 7 receptions of 20 or more yards. He has 5 receptions in 3 of his last 5 games and 65 or more receiving yards in 4 of his last 5 Cardinals contests. It appears as though he has found the fountain of youth in the desert. And Green is going back to yesteryear, doing things that A.J. Green used to do. He's already posted multiple 40-yard receptions twice in the last 2 weeks. I believe both of those went for 41 yards. So A.J. Green, you can fire him up comfortably as a wide receiver too this week. Now, where it gets interesting for me is Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore. I've had a difficult time separating the two pretty much from the beginning of the season to right now. Kirk is starting to separate himself a little bit because the cream always rises, as my good friends would say there. Now, we look at this as a week-to-week kind of thing. Look, Kirk has 30 receptions on 36 targets. Again, 408 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's also posted 50 or more receiving yards in 5 of Arizona's 7 games thus far, and 10 or more fantasy points in 3 straight. Now, Kirk, because of all that production, he is a wide receiver 22 right now with 95.9 fantasy points, while Rondale Moore sits back there at wide receiver 47 with a mere 68.3 fantasy points, which is above Allen Robinson, but that's for another show, another day. Now, unlike Kirk, Moore hasn't had the same success when it comes to finding the end zone. He has done that only once this year. Now, Moore has 26 catches on 31 targets. He's turned those targets into 303 yards while adding 60 more on the ground. Maybe most impressive about Rondale Moore is 86% of his yards so far have come via yak. He's been the yak man. 263 yak yards puts him 7th in the league in that category. Are you kidding me? 87% of your 303 yards have been directly responsible through yak. Okay. Now, the last position I want to talk about, the last guy I really want to focus on here is Zach Ertz. Every day should be National Tight End Day, right? In Ertz's Cardinals debut, he made himself right at home in the sea of red, hauling in 3 of his 5 targets for 66 yards. And I think his longest touchdown ever actually came in that game as well. So dating back to his time in Philadelphia, we can remember that fondly. No, so far this season, he's seen 5 or more targets in 5 straight games. He's recorded 50 or more receiving yards in 3 of those contests. He's also scored 3 times in that same period. Now, tail of the tape, maybe I'm rubbing a little salt on Eagles fans here. Maybe not. Who knows? I think it was a good trade for both teams. I think it helps Goddard here going forward. And I think this is a good move for Ertz as well. Now, Ertz is the QB or the tight end 12 in PPR scoring right now with 64.9 points, 4.3 points ahead of Dallas Goedert, who is the tight end 14. Now, when we look at points per game right now, Ertz is getting 9.3. Goddard comes in at 9.1. What's that got to do with it? Not a whole lot. I just thought I'd throw that out there just for fun. Now, one thing to watch is the effect that Ertz has on Rondale Moore this game coming up and the rest of the season going forward. With Ertz in Arizona last week, Moore only ran 16 routes. He only saw 3 targets. Now, looking at the other pass catchers here, A.J. Green, he had 29 routes. Christian Kirk ran 25. Now, where I'm really concerned is Zach Ertz only played 49% of the snaps, and we only seen Rondale Moore get 16 routes in that time period. The more comfortable and accumulated that Ertz gets with the playbook, I think is going to spell less and less playing time for Rondale Moore. Now, Rondale Moore is explosive. He can make a big play happen whenever, but I don't think you can trust Moore in your fantasy lineups from today on. It's going to have to be a bye-week filler or an injury filler for Rondale Moore to get into my lineups because of what Zach Ertz can do with the Cardinals. With that all said, this has been your Thursday Night Football preview here. Hope you learned a little bit of something. We dropped some stats. We dropped some facts. I threw some numbers out there. And again, you got questions. I got answers. Make sure to hit me up. And as always, head over to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, where we break down each game or do a little bit of a preview for the week, starts and sits, waivers, make some bold predictions, as well as I got the Sunday Night Football and the Monday Night Football preview show coming a little bit later this week. So stay tuned for that. Till then,